In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA097.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your
And we are
country.
back. Hi, Taylor. How are you?
Good, Fars. How are you?
I am doing well as always. Do you want to go ahead and introduce us before I start bantering?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Doomed to Fail. We are the podcast that brings you history's most notorious disasters and epic failures twice a week, every week. And we had a story about serial killers from South America on Monday. And then today, I am going to finish my series on the Olympics. Are you excited?
I am very, very excited.
Yeah.
I will also note that we are waiting for a hurricane to hit Texas.
Ooh.
And
Mhm.
so if you're in the path of the hurricane, get out of the path. Go somewhere else. Do something different. That's it.
Is it gonna hit? It's not gonna hit you. Is it gonna hit you? It's gonna rain. If you're
It's
like in
gonna it's gonna rain. If you're in
You're in
Houston, yeah, if
trouble.
you're like Houston, Galveston area, like it's not gonna be good. I think that like what we're gonna experience is gonna be a ton of rain, which is great. We need
hmm
it, but
hmm
yeah, hopefully it doesn't veer any further off. So TBD.
I mean, it is record hot here. It's like just if you can't even go outside. It's in the 110s.
Seriously?
It's terrible. So we're here. It is right now. It's 100 and it's 6 o'clock at night. Um, every day this week it's gonna be okay. It goes back to 90 next week, but every day this week is gonna be over 100. Today the high was 107. It's so
That
hot.
is worse than here, which is really weird. Usually we get it. Texas gets it worse, but
When it's humid there and it's not humid here, but Palm Springs is right now it's 111. Tomorrow's high is 117. Palm Springs is so hot.
it's so bad.
I'm like, I don't know how much longer can we go on like this?
It's I mean, yeah, yeah.
You know,
Climate
like
the
what do
climate
you
change
do?
stuff.
Yeah,
I
like is it
mean,
gonna just go up forever and then like we can't live here?
I think so. I think that's probably the most likely outcome, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh, what a bummer.
But
We'll see what happens. But yeah, no, it's bad. Oh yeah, it looks like it's
um,
gonna yeah.
it looks like what?
Well, it looks like it's gonna rain for you tomorrow. This is so dumb. Sorry, everyone. Rain for you tomorrow, but that's it. It's only a 65% chance of rain. So
Still, can I claim to be a victim of this hurricane or no?
sure. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and today, so yeah, we're gonna get into part 4 of Olympics. This is the last one you said, right?
Yeah. Yes, I can't do it anymore.
Has it been that trying for you?
Well, I just feel like I've learned a bunch of these are there's just like so much more that I would like to talk about, and I'm not gonna get to it, and that is a bummer, you know? But I'm
Yeah.
like with every Olympics, there's like all these little stories, so I'm not gonna talk about like all the doping scandals. I'm not gonna get to the Winter Olympics things like Cool Runnings and Nancy Kerrigan. Maybe in 2 years, in 2026, when they're having the Olympics in Milan, I can come back to those, you know?
Yeah, Nancy Kerrigan was a fun one.
Yeah, no, definitely we should talk about that, but like I didn't even not even gonna get to it. Um, because today in our final installment, we're gonna talk about the Atlanta bombing in 1996 and Richard Jewell, who is the man who was suspected of being bomber.
Poor bastard.
Poor bastard, Jesus. So we've talked about the origins of the Olympics. We talked about Pierre de Coubertin, who brought them back. It's kind of fun because now every book I read recaps what the Olympics are, and I'm like, oh, we already know all that, which is fun.
Nice.
We
Yeah.
know about the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. We know about the 1972 Olympics in Munich, and now we'll focus on 1996. So some of the things that happened between 1980, which is where we cut it off last time, and now, just to kind of go through what they had. In 1980, the Winter Olympics were in Lake Placid in the United States, and that was a miracle on ice. And I know there's a movie with, is it Kurt Russell
Probably.
where they win? I think it's called maybe called Miracle on Ice, but the
It
U.S.
is.
team beats the Soviet Union, and it's very exciting. In the 1984 LA Summer Olympics, actually, and so the 1984 Winter Olympics were in Sarajevo. The Summer Olympics were in LA, and those are the ones that I wanted to talk about just a little bit. So some fun things that happened there. Mary Lou Retton became the first American woman to win an individual all-around gold medal in gymnastics. So that's super exciting. She's like super cute, has like cute little 80s short hair. That was a big deal. There is a woman named Madeline De Jesus, and she had an identical twin sister who was also in the Olympics. And Madeline hurt herself doing the long jump, so she had her sister pretend to be her during the relay.
Seriously?
Just super fun. Yeah, and they got caught, and then they got the medal taken away. But like that's hilarious, and kind of fun. Um, the opening ceremony for the LA Olympics was in the what's it called, the Coliseum in by UCLA,
Yeah, that was
and
Muhammad Ali was the one who lit
yep,
it.
he lit it at the end. Um, no, that was in Atlanta.
Was it? Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. No, he did it in 1996, but I don't know who did it in LA. But there was a guy in a jetpack. I don't know if you've ever seen this video. Watch it later. Just Google 1984 Olympics jetpack. It's like it's so lame. He just like kind of goes up in the air like 10 feet and like moves around, and it's just like hilarious and like very fun. You can look it up now. Jetpack guy, 84 Olympics. Um, so I want to mention that like this in general because obviously, as you know, the Olympics are coming to LA again.
Hey,
Um,
is it so this is not a jetpack. So he's not actually being propelled by a jetpack. He's just on a string or a wire.
no, it's a jetpack, isn't it? Like from the
There's
bottom.
I mean there's no flames coming out of it.
I don't know this. I don't pretend to know the science, the schematics behind jetpacks.
Okay.
Mars.
Make
Um,
got it.
but
We'll come back to this.
so the Olympics, as we know, is coming back to LA in 2028. And I found a website called NoOlympicsLA.com that goes over all the like, reasons why LA shouldn't have it. There's a lot of them, obviously, like we've talked about how having the Olympics, like a bunch of unhoused people get displaced. It doesn't really help the community. It costs a lot of money. The 1984 Olympics actually was one that like made some money for the city because they had just insane sponsorships and things that they hadn't had before. But there's also an article that I'll put into our sources from the nation. It's called Want to Understand the 1992 LA Riots? Start with the 1984 LA Olympics. So the gist is that the police got so much funding. So this is like a couple years, well, it's like a decade after Munich, but they want it to be like, you're safe because there's so many police here, right? So they were just like a huge police presence with tanks, with all this stuff. And the police became like very aggressive because they had so much money being funneled into them, and that would eventually lead to Rodney King,
Yeah. That's
like
I'm
indirectly.
on the No Olympics page
Yeah,
and that's yeah, what they're saying
yeah.
is likely going to happen this time.
So yeah, so it's fair to say that they were like worried that something might happen during that time. It went off without anything really terrible happening. There was a thing where, and this is important for our story, a police officer named Jimmy Wade Pearson discovered a bomb on a bus, and he like very heroically took it out of the bus and like ripped all of the cords off, like in a movie. But it wasn't a real bomb. He had planted it to be a hero. So
Oh, so there
that's
was some precedent for
yeah.
Jewel.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't know that.
exactly. Yeah. So it had happened. It happened recently and in the US. So just kind of remember that that had happened. So that's 1984. In 1988, the Winter Olympics were in Calgary, Canada. This is the Cool Runnings Olympics and the Eddie the Eagle Olympics. So like silly comedy movie Olympics, those happened then. Um, in the Summer Olympics in 1988, they were in Seoul, South Korea, and Ben Johnson won the men's 100-meter sprint, but he was disqualified for doping, giving the gold to Carl Lewis. And Carl Lewis is going to dominate track and field in like the next 4 to 5 Olympics. In 1992, they were in Albertville, France, and the Summer Olympics were in Barcelona, Spain. This was the dream team Olympics, when Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson got to actually like, and crew got to actually be in the Olympics. And also, I posted something about, I have this amazing CD called Barcelona Gold and had all this like great 90s music on it. So that also happened during 1992. Not that that matters, but I thought it was really fun. Um, in 94, they were in Lillehammer, Norway. In 1996, they were in Atlanta, which we'll talk about in a second. Um, some fun things that happened during that one. I think the funnest is Carrie Strug. Do you remember when she did the vault with her hurt
Oh my
ankle?
God. Yeah.
How exciting that
No,
was. And
she
then
did the vault. Well, she landed in her ankle, right? Was that the one where
no,
she
it
like
was already hurt.
Oh, it was
It was
okay.
already hurt. And then she landed on one foot because it was hurt, you know?
Yeah, I
Um,
remember that.
and then like the coach carried her to get the gold, and it was like a whole thing. So that was super exciting and cute. Um, and then in 1988, I don't know where that was. In 2000, they were in Japan and Australia. Um, 2002, they were in Salt Lake City, so in the US. In 2004, the Summer Olympics were in Athens, Greece, and that's when Michael Phelps comes on stage. He won 6 gold and 2 bronze medals in his first Olympics. And then in 2008, they'll be in Beijing. Usain Bolt, that's his first Olympics. He won 3 gold medals. Michael Phelps won 8 gold medals in 2008,
I
which
remember
is
that.
incredible. Um, in
Taylor,
2010, yeah,
these the dream team, if you look up the scores that they racked up against other countries,
was it just like dumb?
it's so stupid. Yeah. So the one game, June 28th, 1992, US points 136 to Cuba's 57.
Oh my God. I
Just like
mean,
I'm shocked they even got 57 actually.
me too.
So
Yeah,
kudos to
like
them.
one day you're just like playing a basketball team, and the next day they're like, "Oh, hey, Michael Jordan's here against you. Good luck." And you're like, "What?"
No, when I remember being a kid and playing at the YMCA like the basketball. And every now and then it's like so the other kids will like the other team will have someone that's like crazy good and crazy dominant. It's like nobody wants to guard that guy. It's like nobody
Yeah,
wants to be the guy who like is obviously going to lose the game for you.
yeah,
And I just can't imagine being at, like this Cuba team and be like, so who's got Michael Jordan? Like
yeah,
who's
yeah.
guarding
Do you want
Michael?
do you want to cover him, or
Do you want
should
Michael
I?
Jordan or do you want Karl Malone or do you
I
want
don't really
Patrick
want
Ewing or do you
Jordan.
want Scottie Pippen? Who do you want to cover today? It's like what a nightmare.
I know this is not news, but man, these guys are tall. Patrick Ewing is 7 feet tall. It's
Yeah,
just
he's
so
huge.
tall.
Yeah.
It's insane. Yeah, so that was a really fun year for America. Um, What else? So just in general, 2012, Gabby Douglas, she's the first African American woman to win the gold medal in gymnastics, which is super exciting. They're in Russia in 2014. They're in Rio in 2016, where Simone Biles comes to stage. She wins 4 gold medals and 1 bronze. Usain Bolt completed the triple triple. He won the 100, 200, and 4x100 relay for the third Olympics in the row. Like, he's just insane. He's so fast,
Yeah.
out of control.
That's what he's known for.
Um, then they were in Pyeongchang, South Korea, and then they were in Tokyo. I think it's super cool of Simone Biles that she withdrew because she was having mental health issues. Um, I think that was a good, you know, thing for her to do to take care of herself. So she did that, but she's back this year. And then in 2022, they were in Beijing. And then this year, of course, they're in Paris. I'll let you know. I'll do a follow-up if anything crazy happens. But I'm following so many Olympics accounts on our Instagram. It's wild. And I'm excited about track, of course. Um, and swimming, Katie Ledecky is back. She's insane. The top 15 records for her events are all her. She's just like out of control. There's also a women's rugby player named Alona Mayer, who I love. She has a great Instagram account. She's super making me super excited about that. And I only know about women. I don't know if that's also what's happening on our algorithm, but a woman named Sunny Choi is on our breakdancing team. There's 16 men and 16 women. And Sunny Choi, I watched a little documentary on her. She was a global marketing director at Estee Lauder and quit to be on this breakdancing team, which is really fun for her. And I'm excited
Um, that
to
is
see
pretty
breakdancing. Yeah. Yeah.
sweet.
So that's what's coming up in the next, I don't know, couple weeks when it actually starts. But let's talk about 1996. So, bars. It's 1996. You are a preteen,
I'm a little 12-year-old Fars.
little farce. So, lest we start thinking that our times are uniquely turbulent, all times are turbulent. And in the lead up to the 1996 Olympics, a bunch of crazy shit's happening like in the world. So there's a few things that you have to remember that backdrop this story, and they happen in quick succession. So in August 1992, there's Ruby Ridge, and you know about that, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Do you want to say what that is
That was
on the spot?
when the FBI and the Bureau of Tobacco Firearms raided this compound where this white nationalist was living with his
Yeah.
family off the grid. And sure, he's a bad person overall, whatever, but he wasn't actually committing any crimes. It was entrapment.
Yeah.
And they ended up actually killing his wife. I think they might have killed his kid, and arrest the guy. Ruby Ridge was basically the precursor and the setup to domestic terrorism as we know it. Like that
Yes.
was the tee up to the Olympic or God, what was it? Timothy McVeigh bombing, yeah, and all that stuff.
hmm
So
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you. That's exactly right. Because in April 1993 is the Waco Branch Davidian standoff that ended up, killing a bunch of those folks in that cult. In April 1995 is the Oklahoma City bombing. So there's a lot of like domestic terrorism, like you said, and a lot of like tension between the government and people who want to live off the grid. So that's what's happening right now. And so that's in the zeitgeist. There's also one thing that happens right before the Olympics start. On July 17th, 1996, TWA Flight 800 exploded 12 minutes after takeoff. Have you heard about this one?
that's not Lockerbie, is it?
No. So it was flying to Rome from JFK via Paris. So it was headed to Paris for a layover, and it ended up being just like a short circuit in the engine. So the flight took off fine. 12 minutes later, other planes were calling in saying they saw an explosion in the sky, and the burning wreckage was on the ocean. Um, Everyone died. Like almost 300 people died. But in addition to the people on the plane, like, one of the groups on the plane was a group of 16 students and five adult chaperones from the French Club of Montoursville High School in Pennsylvania. And that is inspiration for Final Destination.
No way.
Yeah, which is kind of fun because Final Destination's fun. Because it's like a group of kids going to France, you know,
Yeah.
and then their plane explodes.
It's
So
great. Those movies are awesome. Everybody should see
they're
them.
so good. They're great. I love all of them. And the first time I saw them, I was so scared. I didn't know what to do, but then I was like, I need to face my fear and watch them, and they're great.
When they
They
tied the last one
exactly.
back
They
to the
pinned
first
it
one, I
all
was like,
together.
yeah, I
Oh
was like,
my God.
this is way. You didn't have to do that. Like,
But you did.
we loved it anyways. But man, y'all
Yeah.
really care about us. Thank you, Final
Yeah.
Destination creators.
Yeah. So this is the inspiration for it, which is a terrible tragedy. But
Sorry, really just
no,
fucking nerding out on
it's a
how.
tragedy. I think Andy Warhol's boyfriend was on the flight. A couple other like higher profile people were on it. So definitely a tragedy, but fun that we got Final Destination. But by the time the Olympics start, the investigation is not done, and they think it might be a terrorist attack. Like it isn't, but it's still out there that it could be, you know?
Basically, are you just framing it as like the world is topsy turvy
Yes.
and nobody? Okay, got it.
And no one knows what's going on, you know?
Cool.
So that's like in the background. But the games are in Atlanta, and there's a lot of background reasons to why. But a couple people were like, we really want it to be in Atlanta. They put out the bid. They spent a lot of money like wooing the people who get to vote. It's the 100th anniversary of the modern games. So Athens was like the favorite to get it because, Greece, 100 years, all the things. And Atlanta did the Abraham Lincoln thing and made themselves everybody's second choice, you know. So that's how you win things. So in 1990, it's like 200 people on this committee get to vote on which city, and they vote on like all 10, and then the two that have the least votes are out, and they do it again, and then they do it again, and they do it again until finally it was Atlanta, and they got that in 1990. The games are in Atlanta now. Um, they got voted in. They were everyone's second choice. They wanted the park and Olympics to be open to everyone. They expected bomb threats, but they had a lot of security. They did a training in the airport before with like fake gas. So like there was a bomb in the airport. So everybody was like really ready. Um, Lots of famous people from the 90s were there. The Brian Setzer Orchestra played. That's fun. It's very
I don't know who that
90s.
is.
It's like 90s swing. Remember when
Okay.
everybody like swing in the 90s again
Everybody was
for some
swinging.
reason?
That's all
Yeah.
we were known for.
Um, There's a very on-brand story that Donald Trump was at the Cheesecake Factory and he dropped his wallet, and a kid picked up his wallet and gave it back to him. And to thank him, Donald Trump asked the kid for a $20 bill, and he signed that one.
I mean, I guess that's kind of nice.
He didn't even give him any money for returning his wallet. He took the kid's money and signed it.
Oh, he took. I thought you meant he took
Like,
money out of his own wallet.
no,
Okay,
no, no, no. The kids.
that's funny. That is funny.
It makes sense. So all that's happening, everyone's excited. Atlanta is excited. And so is a security guard named Richard Jewell. And if you have seen this man or heard any of his story, for better or worse, Richard Jewell is Rod Farva,
Aw,
essentially.
yeah. Poor guy.
And I mean that in a very loving and endearing way.
He kind of looks
Um,
like him too.
well, so Jay Leno is being an asshole this whole time and like talking about Richard Jewell when he's not convicted. But Jay Leno will liken Richard Jewell to the person who hurt Nancy Kerrigan, with the bat or
Yeah.
whatever he hit her with. And the same actor, Paul Walter Hauser, plays both those men in the movies. So it does make sense that those two looked alike. The same actor plays him. And Paul Walter Hauser also plays Lonnie LaLouche, who's the Canadian Farva in Super Troopers 2. So
All right, well then
it's a
he was
it's
right.
it's a brand. So he's like a fat guy with a mustache who just like loves being a cop, and that's all he wants to talk about. Like he's so excited about it. He wants to tell you about his training. He wants to tell you how he could stop a bomb. He could do these things, all of that. That's just like his personality. So he's probably like a little annoying, but that's just who he is, you know?
He just likes what he likes, and
Yeah.
we don't have to understand it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, Richard Jewell was born Richard White on December 17th, 1962. His mom, Bobby, and his dad, Robert, divorced when he was 4. His mom remarried a man named John Jewell, which is why he changed his name because he ended up adopting Richard. Things are going well until one day, John Jewell, his stepdad, just leaves. He just abandons the family. He leaves a letter that says, I think I'm a failure. I can't do this anymore, and just leaves. So Richard, who had just started college, moves back in with his mom to help her. And he has some law enforcement jobs. He got fired from 2 of them. One was because he pretended to be like an on-duty officer when he was being a security guard. He had like a side gig as doing security at an apartment building, and he sort of overstepped. So he got in trouble for impersonating an officer. And then he also wrecked a police car because he was kind of a reckless driver. So he always considered
What a
himself law
mess.
enforcement, but he had been fired from a couple law enforcement jobs for
What a
like
dweeb.
things. Yeah,
He
he's a
at
dude.
this point he kind of sounds like that Zimmerman guy.
Like who?
Zimmerman, whatever his name
Oh,
was, the guy was like just a fake police officer and he shot Trayvon Martin, remember?
yes, but like minus the racism. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, I
yeah,
wasn't going with that. I was just being like he's a rent-a-cop who's just like thinks
yeah,
too highly of himself in that capacity.
yeah, yeah. And his goal is to go back into law enforcement and get a police officer job eventually. He's also overweight, which like doesn't help. Like you can be a fat cop if you've been a cop for like 25 years, but like on your first day, you can't be.
I don't know, you'd be a fat detective.
That's true. But
They
I
don't
think you
run
have to
after
be there for a
anything.
couple years. That's fair. But he wanted to be like a cop. He wanted to be like a on the ground.
Right.
Um, so during the Olympics, he got a job as a night guard at on a tower at Centennial Olympic Park, which was this big park that was supposed to be like the central park of the Olympics, where there were bands and there were gatherings and there were parties and all the things. He had the night shift, which was like not boring because things went into really, really late and at night. So it wasn't like just quiet evenings, but he had like a very strict um thing that he would do every day. He would like check the perimeter. There was a bench next to him where he would let police officers sit there and he wouldn't let anybody else sit there. He'd be like, that's reserved for the police. Just like a little bit annoying, taking his job a little bit too seriously is how people like had perceived him,
He
you
sounds
know?
very obnoxious. He sounds like an
Yeah.
absolute fucking dweeb.
He's a dweeb, but he's like not a bad guy. He's just a dweeb, you know? Um, so on July 27th, 1996, Richard took a break from work. He usually never took breaks, but he had food poisoning and he had to go to the bathroom. So he went to the bathroom, which is like going to be suspicious later because he never took breaks, but he had food poisoning. Um, he would remember everything in like such intense detail because that was his like, I'm going to quote, training, like he was like, I'm trained to remember faces and remember this. And it's like annoying, but also helpful if
Such
you
a
need someone to do those
dork.
things,
He's
you know?
such a dork.
So he remembered that there were some drunks and he was trying to get them to move. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and there was a band called Jack Mack and the Heart Attack playing. And Richard noticed that there was an Alice pack, which is a very big green army backpack underneath a bench. And they had people leaving their bags, like they do, like all over the place before. But he got closer to it with another guard. and they kind of opened it, like poked at it, and saw that it really was a bomb. So Richard alerts the GBI, which is the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, it's like the state place. And meanwhile, so this is happening, and him and the guy that he's with are trying to get people to leave, but also not cause a panic. So he's like trying to get people to move away from the bench, trying to get back up, trying to figure out what to do next. He's doing everything right. He is trying to get people to move. And meanwhile, someone calls 911 from a payphone and says there's a bomb in the Olympic Park. You have 30 minutes. And this is like one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, but the 911 operator doesn't have the street address for Centennial Park because it's a brand new park. So she has to call around for like 13 minutes to find someone who will tell her the address because she can't send people there if she doesn't have an address.
Kind of wild.
Wild.
It also sounds very like Die Hard.
Yeah, exactly. Like someone's on the phone, they can't do it, everyone's panicking. And so Richard Jewell and another guard are trying to get people to move, but the bomb explodes at 1:20 a.m. and it is a shrapnel bomb. So like the boom, obviously people hear it from all over, but the real damage is going to be in the shrapnel. So people get like, you know, nails and pieces of metal like thrown into their bodies. Only one person dies from the bomb. Her name is Alice Hawthorne. She's 44 years old. She was there with her daughter who was also injured. A cameraman with Turkish radio and television. His name is Melye Uznyol. He was 40. He, quote, survived coverage of wars in Azerbaijan, Bosnia, and the Persian Gulf, but died of a heart attack, running to get coverage of the bombing. So technically, only two people died, but 111 people were very severely injured.
Got it.
Um, So Richard is there, from before the bomb went off and after the bomb went off. He's doing everything right. So he's like, if you can walk, come with me, like getting the people who are okay out of the way so that anyone else can like get help quickly. And he's just being a hero. Like he, got people away from there. He helped people who needed help. He had all this information that he had remembered from when he scanned the perimeter, all those things. And everything that he does is very helpful. And, everything that you should do, what you would expect an officer or a security guard to do. He did all those things, but then people start thinking maybe he's helping too much. Maybe he knows a little too much, and that starts the whole thing. So the two people who deserve blame for this debacle, are reporter Kathy Scruggs and FBI agent Don Johnson. So Kathy was like a reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. She was like a like a cute female reporter who would like always be at the bar with the police trying to like get them to give her information and tell her things. She was the first person to report that Richard was a suspect, and
Was it true?
it was, but she's going to be in court later, when this is all like, kind of over, and they try to get her to tell her source because someone involved in the case told her at a bar that Richard Jewell, the hero, was the main suspect. And it finds out later that the person who told her this was Don Johnson, the FBI agent in charge. So Don Johnson thinks that Richard Jewell did it and he will not give that up. He won't even look at anybody else. Um, Johnson had some like kind of bad moves in when he was in the FBI in New York and ended up in Georgia. And Kathy, her career is going to be destroyed by this. She eventually is going to die by suicide in early September 2001. And Don Johnson is going to die of lung disease. And they both die before this case is closed. Don Johnson dies thinking that Richard Jewell did it, even after he was let go
What was
and
the name
like
of the
didn't do
woman
it.
again?
Kathy Scruggs, Scruggs.
I mean, it's
So
sad.
yeah, it ruined her life, essentially.
Which
But
it probably shouldn't have because she was taking the advice of an agent or an
yeah,
investigating officer.
yeah, he sounds like a real piece of work, this guy,
Yeah,
for
it sounds
sure.
like it was mostly his fault.
Yeah. So, but Richard was like on Good Morning America. He was on Katie Couric. He was like a hero, like in the news in America, all over the world. And but once he becomes a suspect, They make his life like a living hell. The FBI goes to his house. They take all of his things. It takes them 10 hours to go through his house and like take all this evidence out. It takes them 4 minutes later to return it. They just give it back to them in boxes. His poor mother, Bobby, she's not just like a dumb woman. Like she's very smart. She has a career, all these things. But she had a Tupperware collection that she'd been like working on for like 30 years, and they ruined it. They like wrote on it with Sharpies. Isn't that
That's
terrible?
mean.
So mean. And so she ended up suing them and got $2,000 in the end. Um, but Bobby is a great mother to Richard, and he's there to help her, and she's going to be with him during this whole thing. Um, so after they do this raid on his apartment, he lives with his mom. They do this raid. They bring him in, and Don Johnson, the FBI agent, is the one that interviews Richard for the first time, and he does something weird. He does the Miranda rights in the middle of it, which you can't do. you know, he like does it at the wrong time. And at first, Richard is like, I'm here to help. Like, I'm super excited to be with fellow law enforcement and help you find this person. And then he realizes that they are interrogating him, thinking that he did it. And then they do the Miranda rights. And then it's just like, that's going to be part of the reason that Don Johnson's career gets destroyed, as it should be, because he did this in absolutely the wrong way. Richard will call his lawyer, Watson Bryant, who's like a person who he had known at a previous job, like an older man who he had a friendship with. And Watson's going to be in over his head. He's not really a criminal lawyer, but he's his first lawyer. And he's like, stop talking to the FBI right now, you know, as a lawyer would tell you to do.
Right.
When he gets home after his first interrogation by the FBI, Richard Jewell's mom, Bobby, asks him if he did it. He said, no, mom, I didn't do it. And she never asked him again. She believed him, the whole time. Um,
I'd be pissed if my mom even asked me that. Like, what are you talking
I
about? Like,
mean, I know. She's like, can I help? Like, I think she's like, how can I help you, from here on?
yeah. Yeah, it's a tough
But
situation.
she believed him. Um, they are like 100% sure that it's him, and the media loves it. At one point, there's a reporter on TV kind of yelling about it, like this woman in Atlanta yelling about it, and the assistant U.S. attorney calls the attorney general in Atlanta and says, "Get this woman off the air now. She's making this into a scandal that she's like way going overboard." And guess who that woman was?
No clue.
Nancy Grace.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That
Okay.
was her
Well,
first big thing. And by the end of the year, she'll have her job on court TV and become, be the yeller that she is.
so
Um,
annoying.
yeah. So now people are interviewing Richard Jewell's friends as well, and they are saying things like, yeah, it's weird that he talks about being a police officer so much. Like he does want to be a hero. That is true. So things like that, I think, make it more suspicious, especially because the guy who did it in LA.
Right.
They're just
Yeah,
like, oh.
yeah, yeah. He kind of set the precedent.
Yeah. So he gets a new lawyer named Jack Martin, who's more of a criminal lawyer to help him. They're making him do things like pretend to make the phone call, like there's a bomb in the park, you have 30 minutes, but like it doesn't match his voice. When he does meet with his lawyer does the thing where he's like, is there anything that you want to tell me before we go off, and do this, like at the end? And Richard Jewell says, yes, I haven't done my taxes in 2 years, which is
Poor guy.
cute. Yeah. Um, the FBI is constantly trailing him. They are at his house. They're listening to his phone calls. Like he has a friend who's in the GBI and he wants his friend to come over because he's like, hey, I made a lasagna. Will you come over so we can chat about this? And his friend is like, okay, he comes over, but his friend is wired, so he like can't even trust anyone.
Jeez.
And they he orders pizza and they bribe the delivery guy to hold the door open so that they can get pictures of him. They're just like camped outside of his apartment. They're making it, he can't also, he doesn't have a job. So he's like, he doesn't have a job. He's like really trying to figure out like how he's going to live his life now. There's jailhouse informants who are saying that they know that he did it, but all those didn't pan out. And then he also passes a lie detector test. There's just no evidence that Richard Jewell did this. Like there's nothing.
No,
Um,
it's just if you're kind of like an annoying pain in the ass,
yeah,
you're just an easy target. Just
yeah,
don't be an annoying pain in the ass.
yeah, exactly. He's definitely an easy target on this. So, also just to note, he has a best friend named Dave Duchess, and he's often there to help him. Dave Duchess died in 2021 of COVID, but I just want to bring up that he was a good friend to Richard Jewell, like during all of this. So this is only a few months. So the bomb goes off in July. By October, the U.S. Attorney General in Atlanta sends him a letter saying that he is no longer a suspect. Like they don't apologize. They don't like, they just say you're not a suspect anymore. Um, in 1997, Janet Reno did apologize. She said, quote, "I'm very sorry it happened. I think we owe him an apology. I regret the leak." The leak being the leak that like he was a suspect at all. So
She didn't.
he's
Jan Reno didn't leak it.
no, 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 but like the FBI did.
Right. Okay. She's
Yeah,
apologizing for the FBI. Got it.
yeah, exactly. Um, so Richard tries to get his life back. He does get a job offer in Pendergrass, Georgia, which is like a very, very small town. He becomes a police officer there. Eventually, he'll be deputy sheriff in Meriwether County, Georgia. He gets to be on Saturday Night Live. Norm Macdonald interviews him during Weekend Update and asks him if he also killed Lady Teresa and Princess Diana, or Mother Teresa and Princess Diana, because they just died as well. It's a joke.
Right.
Um, he does sue um, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which is the newspaper, because they were comparing him to Wayne Williams, like the guy who killed a bunch of children. Like they were like doing all this stuff. Like Jay Leno apologized to him. Tom Brokaw had to apologize. Like he did make some money from those things, but he had a hard time, meeting women. And like one time he met a woman on a plane and they went on a date and she turned out to be a reporter who just wanted to write an article about him, which is shitty, you know. But he does meet a social worker named Dana and they get married in 1998. They move to a farm. He's deputy sheriff. He's doing great. He's actually feeling healthier. He lost a bunch of weight, but he still has diabetes. And on August 29th, 2007, his wife called him a couple times and he didn't answer and she rushed home and found that he was dead in their bedroom. He had died of a heart attack, he had heart disease, and Richard Jewell died at the age of 44.
I mean, kind
Which
of a
is
sad life overall, I would
super
say.
sad. I'm very happy that he met Dana. It sounds like they had a lot of fun. He was very sweet to her. Richard would bring a rose to the spot where Alice Hawthorne was killed by the bomb every year, and Dana continues to do that the years since Richard passed,
It's
which
very
is very
sweet.
lovely. Yeah. So, I mean, he sounds like, I mean, he was in the right place at the right time to help, but he was like the kind of guy that was easy to pick on, and obviously they wanted to like get this solved really fast and all of that. So they just like focused in on him and really just like ruined his life for the rest of it.
I mean,
Uh,
he probably wasn't gonna last that long anyways.
yeah, I
Looking at
mean,
pictures of him, he does not look like he's doing good.
he looks good toward the end. He looks thinner when he doesn't have his mustache on. He's a little bit healthier, but it like wasn't enough, you know. He's just like a
Yeah.
guy. He's just like Farva, you know.
He lost 40 pounds.
Yeah. Um, but Fars, what are you thinking right now at the end of the story?
Who actually did it?
Who actually did it? That's a great question. This isn't like, oh God, there's a murderer out there that murders children and killed Casey Anthony's daughter, you know? Like she did it. Like it's not like OJ Simpson where you're like, there's a murderer out there if you didn't do it, dude. But of course there isn't, you know? But in this case, like there is someone out there who planted this bomb. And guess who it is?
It's gonna be one of those white nationalist groups, right?
1,000%. It's a dude. It's one dude, but he is a white nationalist dude. His name is Eric Robert Rudolph. So Eric Robert Rudolph is mad about everything in his life. He joins the army, but he gets kicked out. While he's there, he just says a bunch of racist shit, you know? He's just like a piece of shit guy. He is mad at the Olympics. Later, he says this because of global socialism. He also hates the official Olympic song was Imagine by John Lennon, and he hates that song so much. Like,
I mean,
okay.
I kind of get it.
And he wanted them to cancel the games, but they did not cancel the games after the bombing. They just amped up security, and people were okay with that. So the FBI, in trying to find this person, actually did some like funny things. One thing that I thought was hilarious is so he was kind of on the run for a while. Eric Rudolph, like lives in the forest. Like he only has a driver's license. He has no other identifying, information. Like he's very like as off the grid as you possibly can be, literally like starving to death in the woods for a big part of the story. But when he snuck into or like walked into Centennial Park to plant the bomb, he has a goatee and he has like a hat on, and the FBI has like pictures where they think that they might see someone dropping off the backpack, and they send them to NASA to enhance them, and NASA can't. Isn't that hilarious?
I mean, yeah. I mean, what? I don't think their technology is gonna help in.
But I just
What is
like
it,
imagine just like
1986?
yeah, they do it in Super Troopers where he's like enhance,
It's
and
just
like
like a
that's not a thing.
pixel.
Yeah, can't
That's
do
right.
that.
They did do it in Super Troopers. You're right.
Yeah. So he um would do a couple other things. So he's just like basically a white supremacist, nationalist piece of shit who like, wants to make this global statement. He sets up this bomb. He also will do two other bombs in the next couple of years because they don't find him for years. He bombs a lesbian nightclub. He bombs an abortion clinic, killing a security guard, which is the first murder at an abortion clinic um, in America. And then, but he like really, really is on the run. So he like camps in the woods. He first becomes a suspect in the abortion clinic bombing on February 14th, 1998. So it's 2 years after the Atlanta bombing. He's not a suspect there yet, but he is um, in Alabama for this one because two witnesses, and these two are also heroes. So Jeffrey Tickall and Jermaine Hughes, they see him leaving this place where a bomb went off, and they're like, that guy's weird and suspicious. So they follow him. Like one of them follows him and they get his license plate, and then they were able to find that the car was registered to him, and that's how they get his name for the first time, which is fun that they like went out and did that.
Sorry, what
Um,
year was that?
1998.
Okay, so 2 years later. Okay.
Yeah, so 2 years later. He also does stuff where like he's planting bombs all over, but he remembers where they are. But when they do end up catching him, they have to like make deals with him for him to tell them where all this hidden dynamite is. Because he's like, oh, this is at like the FBI headquarters in Birmingham, or this is like somewhere else. And like at one point he gets scared and he has like a bunch of other bombs and he just like sets them off in a garbage can. So he like there was a chance that he has bombs like in parks and in forests, and someone else could like accidentally set them off,
Right.
Like that's dangerous. So on May 5th, 1998, he becomes the 454th person on the 10 most wanted list. So he's like the 454th person to get on the list. He's on the 10 most wanted list. They're looking for him. They know he's dangerous. And he spends 5 years in the wilderness. He does stuff like he kills animals to live. He has a friend who lives in like who owns like a food store, and he like starts stealing stuff from him and then ends up like stealing his car, and his friend calls the police and says like, he's out here in the woods. Eventually they find him, and when they find him, he kind of like walks out of the woods and he's like behind a convenience store, like dumpster diving. And in the middle of the night, a cop like sees him and finds him and, and apprehends him. And then they figure out who he is. While they're trying to find him, just as an aside, like how we were saying how a lot of these, people come from families that are fucked up. His brother his brother Daniel recorded himself cutting off his hand with a saw to send a message to the FBI
What was the
while they were looking for
message?
his. I have no idea. Like, just to be like, I don't know, honestly. And then like his hand got reattached because someone went and found it and they put it back on and it was fine. But he was just like this doesn't come from a great background.
Maybe
Like
the
that's just so
message.
weird.
Maybe the message is if I'm gonna do this to me, imagine what I'll do to you.
I guess, but it's not even the guy, it's his brother.
So weird.
You know what I mean? So they end up, they find him. He would do things like one thing he was like eating salamanders and acorns and like stealing food from people's houses and dumpsters and things. And eventually they catch him, and he goes to court and he is convicted and he is at the ADX Florence Supermax in Florence, Colorado, which I think we've talked about before.
Yeah, it's like
But
the
but
crazy
yeah,
prison.
and that's where Eric Rudolph. I think that he has been there since 2003, like a lot later.
He
Like,
reminds you of Ted Kaczynski.
yeah, yeah, very similar vibe. Like I'm living in the I'm living in the woods. He was caught on May 31st, 2003, which is wildly late, you
Yeah, he
know?
got 7 years.
Yeah. But those were shitty 7 years for him because he really was starving to death in the woods. So
Yeah.
just like Ted Kaczynski, though, also starving to death in the woods.
Yeah, it's interesting how shitty these guys live and how much pride
Yeah.
they take and how
Yeah.
shitty they live. It's
Yeah.
like, who
Just
are
a
you
shitty
doing this
guy.
for? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
fucking losers.
Sort of the worst. So, um, yeah, that's
Sweet.
it. That's the story. That's the 1996 Olympics. And, Richard Jewell, I'm glad we can remember him as a hero because he was, even though he's a dork. He did save lives by moving people out of there, and he was just a guy who wanted to be a cop in like a I want to help people way. So
Tragic existence. I mean,
yeah,
44 years, and
44, so young to die of a heart attack,
in a big, I mean, a not insignificant chunk of that was spent being harangued 24/7 from all
hmm
angles.
Oh, another thing I forgot to say is there was remember when in Japan when the Aum Shinrikyo cults gassed that subway line
Yeah.
in Tokyo, there was something else that they had gassed in like a suburb, and a man had found it in like a weird way, and he was wrongly accused as well. And he reached out to Richard to be like, hey, like this happened to me in the media, just like it happened to you. And Richard went to Japan and did spend some time with him too. He hated the
Oh,
food,
nice.
which is
He
cute.
wait, you said he hated the food?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, he looks like a Pizza Hut kind of a guy.
Exactly. I think he found all the Pizza Huts in Japan.
Yeah.
But that was cool that he got to travel to Japan, and like meet another person who had the same thing happen to him. So, I feel like I don't know, I feel torn about it because he also then now we know about him, and we
Yeah.
wouldn't have if this hadn't happened to him. He would just be, another guy, but we know about him because of this story, um, which is, kind of fun.
No, it's definitely, I mean, it's yeah, like it
Yeah.
adds something to the lore of the Olympics, you know?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So, um, yeah, wild. So there's something wild, I think, every single time there's an Olympics. And I think because, people want to make a statement, people want to like, the world is watching. It's not ever going to be like the dream of like a lovely everyone gets along sporting event. It's always something else happening, and they're at times very, very tragic. But I don't know. Hopefully everything goes smoothly this year. We'll see what happens. But we also live in turbulent times, so I don't know.
It
Hopefully for the best.
it reminds me of those people who throw like soup or whatever or paint on
Yeah.
art. It's just like
hmm
they just need to get attention in whatever way they need it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully there's some cool sporting things that are going to happen. I'm excited for gymnastics. I'm excited for this breakdancing to start. Yeah, I want to see. Hopefully it's easy to see. Also, I'll keep you posted on how I'm going to watch it. But I also have not received my Team USA sweatshirt yet from Old Navy, so that's a tragedy.
We'll wait with bated breath
Yeah,
for that
wait
to
till I
arrive.
I posted something on Instagram because it was someone who's like, how you judge people who wear like anything with the American flag on it, but then during the Olympics, you're like, woohoo,
Yeah,
which is me.
you gotta flex that pride.
Yeah,
Um,
very good.
exciting. Well, very, very
Yeah,
fun story, Taylor. Fun little series, little four-parter.
yeah. I feel like
Um,
I learned so much, and I feel excited because I feel like I can take these little tidbits of things that I learned about the Olympics with me for the rest of my life.
yeah, and the rest of us will as well, now that we
Yeah,
have it.
yeah.
And probably some really fun, exciting things that are going to be happening here in a little bit with the Olympics starting up in Paris. When does it start?
I oh, that's such a good question. I think the 27th. Um,
It's the end of this month.
yes, at the end of July.
Got
Yeah.
it.
Well, I wonder when the opening ceremony is. It is July 26th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time.
So
So,
convenient to be watching TV.
I mean, honestly, who knows? Hopefully I can have it on one of my monitors because I do want to see it. Um, and then, stay tuned for 2028 when Fars and I will be broadcasting live from Los Angeles during the Olympics, and that will be very fun.
We're going to be correspondents at that Olympics, I
hmm
believe. Yeah.
Yes. So
So
that will be super exciting. Um, we're gonna wear blazers and American flag ties, and yeah, it's gonna be really fun.
Totally. I'm so in.
Can't wait for that.
Very in. Um, Sweet. Well, Taylor, thanks for sharing. Is there anything else you want to read off for the folks before we?
I have one note from a listener. Nadine wanted me to tell you that she loved the Operation Pistorius and likes the idea of like bumbling spy capers. So plus
And
one for those.
there's actually quite a few of those.
Yeah, those are so
So
fun.
they might have to be like mini episodes, or like I just string a couple of them together to make it a full
Yeah,
episode. But there's a lot of content there.
yeah. They are really fun. So thank you, Nadine. I agree. That was a fun one.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. So please find us on all the social media at Doomed to Fail Pod. Email us, doomedtofailpod@gmail.com if you have any suggestions. And please tell your friends. Thank you to my friend Jen who left us a review on Apple Podcasts. Really appreciate it. If you can do that for us, that'd be awesome.
Sweet. Thank
Yeah.
you, everyone. Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you. Thanks, Forrest.
Yep. Bye.
Um,